So welcome, Renee. So Renee is an AI ethicist, data activist, and criminologist at the University of Virginia and Columbia University. She is passionate about using AI to design ethical, real-time, and resilient solutions. She describes herself as the Jedi, which stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Queen of AI, and will help you to activate your inner Jedi as well. So welcome, Renee. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, and we're very excited to have your talk. Have you got any slides that you want to share as a presentation with us?
No, I don't have any slides.
Perfect.
So it's just a one-on-one conversation that we are going to have.
Perfect. Looking forward to it.
Certainly. So thank you so much for inviting me. I feel like family when it comes to teams in AI because I've spent so much time with this organization, of course, on Zoom, because we all know the last 2 years we've been navigating our way in this pandemic. And thank God we are seeing, the light at the end of the tunnel. So I hope that one day soon I'd be able to connect with this great organization in person. So welcome to all of you. Happy International Women's Day, although we are at the end of the month, but I always say every day is International Women's Day. And we have a great team putting this event on. We have a fantastic multicultural group of individuals who are here with me. And I just want to do one thing today, which is to simply stretch your imagination just a little more. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I began my career actually at the age of 18 as a journalist, as a print reporter, and then a feature writer. And then I became a broadcast journalist. And as a broadcast journalist, I worked in news, and then I went on to work in sports. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. And Trinidad and Tobago, I would say, because I am from there, is probably the most beautiful island in the Caribbean. Absolutely fantastic. And Trinidad and Tobago is a very dynamic, multicultural space, a space to me that gives birth to an extraordinary amount of imagination if you look at our culture. And when I became the first female sportscaster in the Caribbean, it really, I think it brought this passion into what I was doing, where I wanted to ensure that everything that I did encouraged more young women to take that leap of faith and enter spaces that they felt that they could not enter. And after I became the first female sportscaster, I decided to leave Trinidad and Tobago when I migrated to the United States, where I am now, to New York City. And while in New York, I worked during the day in fashion at the Fashion Institute of Technology, and then I went to school. And when I went to school, I decided to do a very broad bachelor's degree, and that bachelor's degree had a focus in media and journalism and politics and feminism. And I combined all of that in an honors program that really had a scientific and philosophical base and allowed me to think really broadly, but yet deeply about a lot of issues and find ways in which I could interconnect all of those issues. And then I went on to do a master's degree in educational counseling and rehabilitation counseling. I was very committed to using counseling psychology and psychotherapy to help individuals change their lives. So I worked in substance abuse treatment for very long, and I worked in what is called a therapeutic community. And a therapeutic community is a 24-hour residential facility for individuals struggling with substance use issues. My clients came off of the streets of New York, and they came through the court system, and they decided to take treatment and rehabilitation instead of jail time or prison time. So the program was about rehabilitation, and it combined a psychological rehabilitation, rehabilitation from substance abuse, and of course, vocational rehabilitation, because I think you would appreciate if you've spent an extraordinary amount of time abusing a substance, it means that your vocational and your career goals would have been challenged. And that really brought me face to face with humanity, lives, human beings, families, abuse, how relationships were created, and how something like substance abuse could destroy a relationship, and the impact these forms of addiction were having on the lives, in particular, of children. The other thing that sparked my attention while I was part of this program was the relationship between substance abuse and crime. And that is when I decided to pursue another master's degree that looked at crime and criminality. And I became a criminologist. And while all of this was happening, something very tragic happened to my beautiful New York City, and that was 9/11. When we had the terrorist attack and when the historic and Twin Towers fell. So while I was pursuing my studies, I decided to do a joint master's in terrorism studies. So when I graduated from that program, I graduated with an extraordinary amount of knowledge in forensic psychology, criminology, and the psychodynamics of terrorism. And then I created a life for myself as a criminologist, working also as a criminal psychologist and a therapeutic jurisprudence specialist. And therapeutic jurisprudence simply means that when I work within the realm of corrections, which would be our prison system, I believe that the law must always have a therapeutic impact. It must be used for change, not for punishment. So I've spent the last 15 years working in homicide, working with police agencies to train police officers to reduce homicide, reduce violence, reduce gun and gang violence, and do things like protect children and protect women and come up with strategies where we can investigate crimes in real time and bring a different kind of dynamic to the space, which is justice. And while I was doing that extraordinary work, something that was very exciting, I started to realize that in policing and in criminal justice, there's an over-reliance on data. And data, very, very powerful and very, very effective in doing the kind of real-time work that we needed to do. But then I was realizing some things that just weren't being reconciled for me. And one of those things would be the ways in which we were using these risk assessment tools in the criminal justice system. And these risk assessment tools are tools that are AI inspired or AI infused, and they are built with algorithms. And the algorithms, using historical data, data collected from the criminal justice system over the years, were creating these decisions, what we call zombie predictions. And these decisions were unfortunately overestimating the risks of Black and brown defendants in the United States as opposed to white defendants. So there was something there that just wasn't connecting, wasn't sitting right with me. And I started to realize that because we were using historic data to build these algorithmic decision-making tools, and when you think of the challenges in the American criminal justice system, and these challenges were linked to 400 plus years of the enslavement of African people and Black and brown people, colonization, oppression, capitalism, discrimination, bias, and so many unfortunate systems that sort of found their way into the criminal justice system, we realized that the algorithms we were using were biased and were discriminatory. So this is when I realized that data science and AI and technology needed to have more criminologists. Well, there are only a few of us in this space, and I decided to step in and I decided to open my mouth and make a conscious decision to bring the requisite levels of visibility to the ways in which bias and discrimination could undermine the criminal justice system. So this is where I am now, and in my current role, I'm a community scholar at Columbia University, and I'm also the first data activist in residence at the School of Data Science at the University of Virginia. Hence the reason that I'm sometimes in New York at Columbia and here in Charlottesville at the University of Virginia. An amazing school if you're ever thinking about data science, and if you're ever thinking about just studying in the United States. Two great schools, Columbia University and the University of Virginia. So what's a data activist activist in residence. A data activist is someone who understands that data could be not only very powerful, but that power could also be so political that it could inform so many different processes in ways, if we don't pay attention, could undermine the trajectory of many lives having an opportunity to access many of the resources we have in society. So when I think of data activism, this is where the JEDI principle comes in. And JEDI is an acronym for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And you would find those four words critical to the ways in which we are thinking about data science and the ways in which we are thinking about artificial intelligence. So because of my background in criminal justice, where I was committed to justice, due process and equity in front of the criminal justice system, and of course, social justice and racial justice, and even climate justice and environmental justice, all of these were things that I was looking at as a criminologist. I said, in everything I do, I have to bring that justice-oriented approach to the ways in which we are thinking about data science, thinking about AI, thinking about machine learning, thinking about deep learning. And when it comes to equity, we've got to understand, if we are building technology that's going to change the world in extraordinary ways, and I am so committed to the things that we can do with AI. AI is indeed the most transformative technology of my life, of our lives, and it has the potential, the promise, and just the power to make this world such an extraordinary place, even more extraordinary than it is right now, but make it in a way that we can all have the kind of access and resources and opportunities that we need. But we were seeing challenges with our data set, challenges with bias and discrimination in our algorithms. So as a data activist in residence, I am working on a particular project, which brings more accountability and transparency to the ways in which we do policing in the United States, looking at things like surveillance technologies and looking at the kinds of investments police departments across the US are making into surveillance, and whether or not these surveillance technologies are delivering what has been promised. What we've seen, no. What we've seen, many of these projects, vanity projects for the police. And what we can do is, we may not need to invest all that money in technology. We can take a lot of that and invest in young people, invest in programs for juvenile justice, invest in multi-systemic therapy for families, to help families with challenges and with any kinds of issues that are uprooting what is the foundation of those families. So as a data activist in residence, my focus is on democracy, data, decision-making, and due process. The thing about data is, what we use data to do would be make decisions. And when we're making decisions with data, when we think about healthcare, when we think about finance, when we think about education, when we think about just any aspect of our lives, we want to ensure, if we are using data, we are making decisions that are accurate, decisions that are fair, decisions that are ethical, decisions that are accountable, transparent, explainable, non-discriminatory. When we're thinking about data, we're also thinking about privacy and data protection, and we're thinking about security. So all of these are concepts that I discuss a lot in my work as a data activist and as an AI ethicist. So as an AI ethicist, I look at ways in which we can always make sure that AI is ethical. And I also try to stretch the imagination of data scientists and technologists for them to understand the power of diversity, the power of inclusion, the power of equity, and the power of justice when we are designing technology, when we are building algorithms, when we are designing and deploying AI, when we are thinking about machine learning and deep learning and new and emerging technologies. We've always got to remember that JEDI principle. Why is it so important? Because if we want to develop a technology that's such as AI, a technology that has to be responsible and a technology that we've got to trust, we have got to ensure that this technology is mature. And maturity speaks to the embracing of a justice-oriented, equitable, diverse, and inclusive perspective. It's about collective intelligence. And that's what I always say. We've got to bring the best of the computer and the best of the human mind together to make those decisions. It is about having that collaborative, interdisciplinary, and multicultural perspective. And I think that is what this group brings to the table. So you would think about, how do we do this? And why is this important? So when I look at my own journey, my journey from journalism, print journalism, as a reporter, an investigative reporter, to an investigative broadcaster, being on television, doing the news, reading the news, creating the news, and then even stepping into the field of sportscasting, and then working in fashion, and working in publicity and entertainment and the music industry, and then working in rehabilitation and psychology and psychotherapy, and at one time having my own practice as a psychologist and working as a criminologist, working in investigations, working as a criminal profiler, working within the realm of terrorism studies and counterterrorism, and just working broadly across that spectrum of media and crisis communication and in the criminal justice system. All of those things, which many, many years ago when I was doing all of this, people would say, what are you doing? Why don't you settle on one career? Why don't you do one thing? But now I've realized the doing of all of that doing has created something in my mind that makes me think of things in a different way, makes me approach problem solving in a more creative and critical thinking approach that brings different kinds of solutions. So why am I really here? And I'm here to inspire you, to tell you this thing. AI and data science and deep learning and machine learning doesn't only need STEM focused careers. It needs a combination of everything. So if it is that some part of your mind is thinking of fashion and another part of your mind is thinking of data science and AI, you can combine it. If you're thinking of social work and education, you can combine it. If you're thinking of architecture and culture and anthropology, you can combine it. And that is the power of what we are seeing with data science, the collaborations, the interdisciplinary thinking, very, very important. So when I think about data and I think about AI and the kind of passion that I have for the things that we can do, I always think of the public good. And at the University of Virginia, I'm co-director of the Public Interest Technology Network. It's a university network and it encompasses about 60 or more universities across the United States. And what we do is we think of ways to inspire through curricula, through projects, through programming and funding, ways in which we can design technology for the public good. So I told you about that tool that I'm designing that creates a digital force. So you're able to see by putting in your zip code in the United States, how much digital force is being deployed against you by the police or by federal agencies in your particular community. And you have an opportunity to think about that, because what we're seeing with surveillance technologies in the United States is that it's undermining civil rights and it's undermining civil liberties like the freedom of expression or the freedom to gather in a public space or equal equity in front of the law, and many, many challenges when it comes to privacy and when it comes to security. So I don't want to keep you too long, but I hope I have inspired in you that excitement and that passion to let you know that you need to go out there and create. And when you are creating technology, you need to have a really comprehensive and deep appreciation for cross cultural connections. And I think that's what we're doing here. We're connecting in a way that is multidisciplinary, it is interdisciplinary, it is multicultural. We're seeing those cross connections. The other thing that I want you to do, and I always want you to think about, is that you already have in you everything you need to be an extraordinary success. The other thing that I want to tell you, and I always say, is be kind to yourself. In life, we often don't take the straight road there. Our life takes us on many journeys. And I want you to understand that every experience that you have can help build that collective that is required to do the extraordinary work that is needed at the moment. So just in a nutshell, everything that I do looks at the impact of technology and data science and AI on society. And when I talk about society, I'm talking about lives. And if it's one thing that I am committed to doing, is ensuring that I bring as many teenagers into this space, because you are the future. You have the ideas. You are going to lead the way. And in the end, when I look forward and I see you, I am expecting that everything that you do is going to lift humanity up, lift communities up, support communities, and bring that Jedi principle to your work. So I do hope I have awakened in you your inner Jedi. And always remember, as you are designing, as you are developing, and as you are deploying technologies such as AI, don't ever forget that acronym: justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And once we do that, what we are doing is a public good. And what we are doing is lifting up humanity to a place that we can always be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you
Wow,
so
great
much.
talk. Thank you.
That was incredible. Feeling very inspired. Yes, even the comments Bianca said, you really inspired us. If anyone has any questions for Renée, you can put them in the chat or unmute yourselves. We can start. I guess, Renée, you spoke about the different career paths that you went into and how your plan kind of changed a lot. What advice would you give to either young teenagers or people who are still trying to figure out their path and are unsure about a plan for their career?
I will say this: don't ever think in the context of being unsure. Live in the context of the moment. So whatever you're doing now, enjoy what you are doing. I'll be very honest. My daughter is 18, and sometimes she gets, so concerned that she's not successful enough, that she's not doing enough, that she needs to do more. And I think as society, we're putting an extraordinary amount of pressure on young people. I want you to do one thing: enjoy being a teenager, enjoy being young, enjoy knowledge, build your intellectual curiosity, look at all of the things that you like and try as many as you can, because it eventually all comes together. No experience goes to waste. My life was not a straight road there. Along the way, I hit many bumps, but I was always able to pick myself up, dust myself off, and continue. And even if you think at some time you're falling off the road, it's okay. Just put that hand out, message me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Reach out to me. I am forever a virtual mentor to anyone in the Teen and AI program. But be kind to yourself and understand that you still have an extraordinary amount of time. We don't develop in a day. We don't develop in a year. I will not tell you my age because I do not want to scare you, but I am way past 50. So what I'm saying to you is, I want you to just enjoy. And in the enjoyment of the experience, you will find your passion.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like that is exactly what we need to hear. I think that is going to inspire a lot of people. If anyone has, oh, amazing. anyone has any other questions, or if Juliet, you would like to ask a question.
Let me just have a quick look. I did prepare a couple of questions beforehand. I don't know, to be honest. I'm kind of just a bit in awe. It was such a great
Ask me
presentation.
anything. I always say, ask me anything, you know?
What is your favorite kind of like story that you have of like in your career, like where you've seen like the most impact being made? Like what kind of thing have you got to experience that?
Sure. Well, I think now, you know, in every part of my career, I've had fun. And trust
Yeah.
me, at times my parents told me I was having too much fun. When I look back, yeah, I had a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay. And I just want you to know is that whatever you do, whatever the experience, you must take a moment to enjoy what you're doing. And you must take a moment to congratulate yourself. Success is incremental. Success doesn't happen boom. I'm still not at a place where I think of myself as a success. Every day I'm learning. I'm not a data scientist, but
Yeah.
I speak to data scientists. I lecture sometimes on data science, on the ethics of data science, and I'm interacting with so many scientists. And what we're realizing is that we need each other. This world is interconnected. And I think, if anything, the last 2 years taught us that, why we need each other, you know, how things impact each other. And what I want you to do is explore all of those things that are inside you and just live in that moment. And whatever you're doing, think about it like this. As I always say, AI and data science and machine learning, no matter what you do, you realize that if it's sport, it has a data science part to it. If it's fashion,
Yeah.
they're using data science now. Just enjoy it. For me, my success would be the things that I do, particularly with young people. And every time that I speak, if I inspire one person to really explore to their fullest potential and just to stretch their imagination just a little bit, or realize, wait a minute, I don't have to be an engineer, or I don't have to be to get into data science and AI, then I have done my work. And if I've encouraged one young person to encourage another young person, then I have done my work. And if for me, if as I say, I'm forever that virtual mentor. And it really is about enjoying yourself, celebrating yourself, being kind to yourself. And that's how you really enjoy your successes. And that's the kind of successes that I enjoy, which is when I see young people smile, and when I see young people leave a speaking engagement with me and they feel good about themselves. And that's what I want, more young people to feel good about themselves and to understand you are talented. You have everything you need inside of you. Just go out there and win. You're going to win.
Perfect. Thank you. Great answer. Let me just check the chat for any more questions. If anyone has any last minute questions, if you put them in the chat. And yeah. So I can't see any at the moment. We'll give it a couple more seconds to see if anyone has put anything in.
You really inspired us.
Yeah, I think you inspired more than just one.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the best.
Thank you.
My life.
Oh, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Listen, I love all of you all. If there's anything you need, just reach out to me. And I know the organization knows where to find me. And if anyone wants to just have a personal chat with me, if you're thinking that you're confused, listen, I've done the spectrum from school counselor to family therapist to substance abuse treatment, whatever it is, just reach out and let's have a conversation. Because what I want you to do is I want you to explore your fullest potential. And I look at your beautiful faces, the ones that I'm seeing here, and I just want you guys to know that I love you and I am here for you, and have a fantastic day and just an amazing life. You're amazing. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I think everyone in the chat is pretty speechless at the moment. So thank you, Renee.